Culturally Responsive Teaching, PBL Project-Based Learning by Ashley R. Todd. Through this course outline, Lesson 1, what is project-based learning? Lesson 2, how does PBL connect to culturally responsive teaching? Lesson 3, examples of project-based learning. History of PBL. Project-based learning derived from problem-based learning, mainly through students who studied in scientific fields. Long ago, theorists like Piaget and Dewey determined children learn from hands-on experiences, and around the 20th century, there was someone named Montessori who began to develop enrichment activities that would close the learning gap for students, which started project-based learning. What is PBL? Project-based learning is a teaching method in which students gain knowledge and skills by working for an extended period to investigate and respond to an authentic, engaging, and complex question, problem, or challenge. PBL starts with an essential question, open-ended question that poses a problem and can have more than one solution. This question is a question that intrigues the students and is community-driven. Each activity pieces together the end goal, those possible solutions. Teachers plan with the end in mind. However, the students also have an input on the activities that help them develop a solution to the problem or situation. So, what is PBL? Just like any teaching experience, you want to plan ahead. But with this planning, the students will also get involved. Yes, the teacher is going to have the rubric and the activities and what the final outcome should look like in mind as you're planning, but you also want to have that student input. So this is why it's different from just your project that you give to your students and give them maybe a week or two to have it completed. With this project is more personal for the students, and that's when that culture piece comes into play. So with this project, be prepared. Well, with project-based learning, be prepared as a teacher to adapt and readapt. There are going to be changes throughout the project, but not a lot of changes, but you will see that sometimes you're going to have to change things so it will be suitable for the project and the students that you serve. Like again, involve the students. Monitor along the way. One thing about project-based learning, the teacher is really the facilitator, but the kids are really intrigued and they're coming up with their own questions. They're thinking about ways that they can solve whatever their problem or situation is, and they're really coming up with some of the rubric of how the project is supposed to look or the outcome. And you're also assigning roles. You'll have people who could be team managers, leaders. The children play a very important part in project-based learning. They take on real world jobs. So they're constructionists, they're environmentalists. There are different jobs that go along with the projects that you're doing with project-based learning. So you'll get to see how it really goes into real world problems. What you don't want to do is always try to put that content first. And what that means is just making sure the students enjoy what they're doing. Yes, you want to have those, make sure those standards are being met, but I really want to say that I've had the experience of doing project-based learning a couple of times, and that reading that really plays into place where they're learning main idea. They're learning those different standards dealing with math and fractions and multiplication and geometry and algebra. Those standards do come in, the science and the social studies. Those all come in, and you hit those standards. And I've been to seminars and trainings where other schools out of my area, out of my state, are we're talking about their experience when their students have those state tests, that they score really high because they've hit those standards, but the students have kept what they learned. And that is something that project-based learning speaks to as well, is that the students retain what they've learned better. How does PBL connect to culturally responsive teaching or just having a culturally diverse classroom? One thing I've learned about project-based learning is that it empowers students to address social justice issues or just issues that are dealing with in their community. And that's why it's important to them. It requires the teacher to not only look at the curriculum, but also the classroom setting and how the students are assessed. And that is where you're closing that achievement gap, that learning gap, or the opportunity gap, all those gaps in education that people have been trying to close. And that those issues are mainly in our minority groups. So that is how culturally responsive teaching helps with project-based learning, or ties into project-based learning. It allows the students to have a voice in the classroom and solve real-world problems and situations. So what does that mean? This is just a PBL example that we've started at our school, which is and we're 4th grade. Our driving question for the students was, if we don't take care of the earth, what will it look like in 2100? And you can see we have the different standards that, and these are just a few standards that this project will touch on. Some more questions and these are questions that students are coming up with. And we had videos that we showed them. And we had activities where we actually dug a hole and buried our own trash, and you'll see that later on. The kids were really trying to get information about, well, landfills. Where are these landfills? Do we have landfills near our community? Where are they located? They were really interested in what was going on. And then we had and this was all done around Earth Day, so this was very exciting for them. And then later we had this special news report by President Biden that was talking more about what we as a nation could do to help take care of our planet. And so this is some pictures where we show where we're digging holes. Well, we dug a hole on the school ground and buried trash, and we're going to go back and check and see has decomposition started or how far along it's gotten. But you can see they were gathered all around. But they really took control of the project, and we were really just facilitating. And another thing I like to say about project-based learning is that it gives the students more than one outcome for them to solve the issue. And that's when they can kind of have they can take control of what they learned in the rubric and assess them, how they assess or how they're going to be assessed of what they learned and how well they developed their project. So some students may want to write a paper to get more recycling bins in the area. Some students were interested in planting, and so they started with planting, and then they'll probably have a writing piece or some type of presentation to convince people that one way we could take care of our planet is by planting, because now we're talking about planting and how it can we could develop clean air from plants. So they kind of took control of what they wanted to do to solve that driving question, that problem that they had. And so these are just references that I used about project-based learning. But this is one strategy that I thought I could use as far as a teacher to help my students be culturally diverse students, because even though they're all in that same community, some of them live there, they are learning to come together and take care of where they live. And it opens up communication. We have groups to talk about issues and talk about what's going on in their neighborhoods. So it brought a lot of conversation in the classroom, and we got to see different sides of where people lived and what's going on in their neighborhood. So I think project-based learning is a really great strategy and a start to making sure you're keeping your classroom culturally diverse. And here's a video. If you choose, you can click on it and watch it later. But this just gives you some more insight about project-based learning. And thank you again for watching and listening. And again, my name is Ashley Todd.